My name is Alaina Aflague Arroyo. I am a senior critical diversity studies major with a minor in sociology. I was born in Hayward, California, and I grew up in San Lorenzo. I am native Chamorro from the Marianas Islands archipelago in Micronesia, and I'm also Puerto Rican and Mexican. I am applying to grad programs right now. I would love to study Indigenous politics, to hopefully be a professor in higher education. If not, then I would love to teach high school or middle school students in Guam or in the Bay Area. Mixed race, it's really interesting to navigate how I move throughout the world and through society. I really strongly identify with my ethnic background, and I really strongly identify with being Native Pacific Islander. My mom is Chamorro and my dad is Mexican and Puerto Rican. Being from Guam, which is a U.S. territory, people from the island can enlist in the military. At the time they didn't have citizenship, but now we have citizenship. So my great-grandfather on my mom's side was in the Navy, and he was a part of Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. And him and my great-grandmother moved a lot, going back and forth from the United States. Wherever there was a base, that's typically where Chamorros were, because we have the highest military enlistment per capita. So they moved back and forth between the US and Guam. And then they had my grandma and her siblings, and my grandma met my grandfather in Guam, and he enlisted in Vietnam. They also moved back and forth between the States and the island, but ended up settling in the States around the 1970s. Guam has experienced over 400 years of colonization, starting with Spain in 1521, and then the United States purchased Guam along with the Philippines, Cuba, Puerto Rico. Guam's history of colonization has, historically just been incredibly violent, with assimilation to Christianity and Catholicism. The United States assimilation, which looked a lot different from Spain, to a lot of the forced labor that was put onto the Chamorro people during the Japanese occupation. My great-great-grandfather was actually murdered by a Japanese soldier for refusing to bow. And that was something that was really common. There was a lot of resistance with obedience and making sure that we remain and stay who we are. But the consequence of that for a lot of folks was death. Today we still face a lot of issues with receiving war reparations. A lot of the generation that experienced that violence are now passing away.
United States militarization and occupation has removed Chamorros from spiritually connecting to their history and being forced to relocate to other regions due to economic situations and lack of resources.
Not a lot of people know of Guam, and if they do, then it's always attached to that U.S. history and not really recognizing us as our own people who have a really long history of survival and resilience. Puerto Ricans also have U.S. citizenship, so coming here was a lot different than when my grandmother came here from Mexico. Her and my great-grandmother and my grandma's siblings stayed in Tijuana, while my great-grandfather was in California getting papers for my grandma and her family. I feel like American culture definitely places a negative stigma towards my Latino heritage and that identity, especially with the current political climate with immigration and those who are undocumented. We're really hardworking people, and that doesn't always get talked about, especially with Puerto Rico, with Hurricane Maria, which just reached its first year anniversary.
Now, I hate to tell you, Puerto Rico, but you've thrown our budget a little out of whack because we've spent a lot of money on Puerto Rico.
I think that the American culture doesn't pay enough attention to all of our complexities and multiple layers of culture and just history. Coming to USF
There were really no Pacific Islanders that I saw on campus that were physically visible because we do make up less than 1% of the population. It's really difficult to build community when there are no resources on campus, but that's why we made the Pacific Islander Collective so that we can have a space for Pacific Islanders to come together. There are no classes that are centered around Pacific Island history, and we make up a really vast part of the ocean, and we have thousands of islands with very complex histories in themselves and very different cultures. There's a lot to learn and there's a lot to teach.
Understanding yourself is so essential to understanding your purpose in life. It's really making my family proud with all the sacrifices that they've had to make in their life. I feel like I have to pay them back. So being here in college and receiving my education and my degree is giving them everything that what they couldn't have. So trying to respect all of that too.